Hey, this is Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses, and you're watching GNR Central. Yeah!
Hey everybody, what's going on, and welcome to GNR Central. And today I want to talk about 5 things that you may or may not know about Axl's current manager's Team Brazil. So Team Brazil is basically a Brazilian family that consists of 3 people. So it consists of Beta, who's the mother, Fernando, who's her son, and then Vanessa, who's her daughter. And they have a long history with Guns N' Roses dating back to the early 90s. The first thing you may or may not know is that Beta used to be Stephanie Seymour's nanny for her son Dylan. And the first time Guns N' Roses fans really got to see her or become aware of her was in the band's 1993 music video Estranged. She's seen leaving Axl's house in Malibu. Number 2, the thing you may or may not know is that Guns N' Roses former managers Doug Goldstein and their last manager Doc McGhee have both complained publicly about Beta and what she was like to deal with. So in Mick Wall's latest book, The Last of the Giants, which talks about the history of Guns N' Roses, Doug Goldstein, who was a Guns N' Roses manager between 1991 and 2002, told a story about how about 7 years after he was fired from being Guns N' Roses manager, he got in touch, or he tried to get in touch with Axl once again. So according to the book, it was now that another old face from Axl's past tried to step in and save the day. Basically, things with Axl's management at that time with Irving Azoff had fallen apart, and Doug Goldstein, having spent 5 years in Hawaii, as he puts it, drinking umbrella drinks and helping raise my family, he now felt ready to get back into the game and thought he saw a way of both solving Axl's troubles and making a ton of money. Unable, though, to get to speak to Axl personally, he wrote him a letter. So Doug Goldstein said, I wrote a letter to Axl, gave it to Beta, and said, don't let anybody else see this, and the next thing I know, it's on the effing internet. I've had some people since go, why on God's green earth would you put together a letter like that? And I've gone through the letter a number of times, and I thought I had some great ideas. I told him, referring to Axl, let's start by opening for Van Halen through a stadium tour. Let's kill him on their stage, then the band would be solidified in the public eye, and then we'll go on and do our own thing. And then I mentioned having something called the Rose Fest, which is basically just ripping off the business model of Sharon Osbourne and Ozzy of Ozfest. My point behind it was, Axl, you're getting to the point where you don't like to tour, so Ozzy only does like 1 in every 3 Ozfests. Yet year after year, it's still called Ozfest, and he reaps the reward. They make more money than any of the artists playing on the bill just by cruising the event. So that was all covered in the letter as well, and unfortunately I was never communicated with back in return to the letter that I sent him. All I know is he was really angry that Beta and I had met in private. So Goldstein also touched on the thorny subject of a reunion, but coming out on the side of not doing one. What I said was that the Azoffs and the Doc McGees of the world, they're not going to back your artistic play. They're really only interested in the reunion. My point was, whatever you do professionally, I'll be there for you. If you don't want to do the effing reunion, F the reunion. That's fine. The reunion will always be there, but if you want to do Axl Rose's Guns N' Roses for the next 20 effing years before the reunion, then let's go. I'll be your guy and I can do a great job. You already know that. But when the letter was published on the internet, Goldstein became a figure of ridicule. It seemed an unnecessary, harsh way to repay 17 years he'd spent watching Axl's back. So even Guns N' Roses' former manager Doc McGhee talked about dealing with Beta and said some pretty unflattering things. So when he first got the position, he wasn't really with Guns N' Roses for a very long time. So according to the book, there followed an extended period when various big-name managers were sounded out for the job. So initially the post was given to Doc McGhee, who famously managed both Motley Crue and Bon Jovi to success in the 80s, and at the current time he was managing Kiss, Hootie and the Blowfish, and several others. Few inside the biz doubted that Doc had merely been positioning himself for the inevitable reunion that would come, if not now, then someday for sure. So basically, when Axl got the same feeling on a flight to Japan where Doc attempted to question him at length about his problems with Slash and what the guys might be exactly, suddenly he was looking for a new manager again. So years later, Doc would look back and laughingly tell friends how he got sick and tired of the fact that I could only speak to Beta, that whenever a meeting was taking place, she was always there, that whenever I had managed to get Axl's direct phone number, she had changed it. And it wasn't former Guns N' Roses managers that were the only one who talked about Beta this way. Even Mark Kanter, who we interviewed, said the exact same thing during our interview with him about a year ago. So he revealed that they were the people who run Axl's life and they were blocking the Guns N' Roses reunion. So Mark Kanter, who was good friends with Guns N' Roses during the early days as they frequented his restaurant, said the following to us in his interview. He said, "I knew it would happen," referring to the reunion, "and actually I spent 9 years of my life doing what I call an Axl intervention in the public. So every time I did an interview, because Axl was a little upset with me, I put the book out when I put it out. He loved the book," referring to Reckless Road, "when I put it together. But at the time, I found a publisher, and he didn't really want it out at that point because he was just about to promote something different," referring to Chinese democracy. And he was still had sore feelings towards some of the old guys. To me, I was like, no, whatever happened, happened. He said, "These are your children, and you don't want to shut your children down because you don't like your ex-wife. You want to be proud of your children, and if you're with a new wife, make new children with that new wife and move on. But there's no new wife without the old wife. It's the old one that got you there, and the fans are there because of it. So that's fine if it didn't work out, but you can't erase it." I basically, when I was doing interviews, it was almost like I was talking to Axl. The problem is I think that the people that run Axl's life didn't want him to see that, and they basically somehow, I don't know how, they managed to get him not to read or look at whatever, so they kind of kept him sequestered a little bit. So the third thing you may or may not know about Team Brazil is that back in 2011, Axl gave an interview to the LA Times where he revealed exactly why he chose to have Team Brazil manage him. And even at one point, Team Brazil threatened to walk out on Axl if he ever hired any other managers. So the article says, more important, he adds, most managers want the same thing that nearly every rock and roll fan of the past quarter century wants, and that one thing he stubbornly refuses to do is reunite with Slash, Izzy, Duff, and the rest of the classic GNR group for a tour. The constant question is an albatross and leaves Axl not only tired but weary of anyone in the business looking to work for him. Axl says all these managers want, they believe in one thing, sell a reunion and get their commission. It's just a phone call, it's half a day's work, or however long they want to keep the bidding war going. They get their commission and they don't care if it falls on his face. So the mistrust is partially the reason why Rose's current management team is more family than business partner. It's headed by Rebekah Legion, a Brazilian woman Rose met when she was his ex-girlfriend Stephanie Seymour's assistant. She began working for him after his tempestuous relationship with Seymour ended in 1993, and Lebeis' 2 children, Fernando and Vanessa, round out the management group. Lebeis says that this arrangement is the result of an ultimatum she gave Rose after Guns N' Roses' most recent manager left the fold after less than a month on the job. So Betta said, "We decided no more managers," says Lebeis after a few days after the Seattle concert. "Between me and Fernando and my daughter, we're dealing with the management." And she basically added that she characterizes Rose as more than a son to me, and that after their most recent manager's departure, I told Rose that if he hires another manager, I quit. One of the Lebeis' 3 is almost always a Rose's side, be it in paparazzi photos or side stage during concerts, near the little makeshift dressing room that Rose frequently races into during the guitar solos, or on that rare occasion when he actually sits down with a journalist. So back in 2005, there was an article, and there was even a bunch of news stories going around that Axl had been visited by Slash in the middle of the night in an effort to try to resolve their ongoing lawsuit involving rights to the old Guns N' Roses songs. So originally, Axl claimed that it was Slash who he spoke with, and that Slash said a bunch of disparaging things about his Velvet Revolver bandmates. And then months later, Betta gave an interview to basically an official GNR website. She told the official GNR website that I was the one with whom Slash spoke when he came to Axl's house in October of 2005 and expressed his negative comments regarding the others in his new band. So even Slash corroborated the story, saying he basically saw Axl's assistant and gave her a note that Axl should call him. So Betta went on to say, behind the scenes, it is a different story than what the public is told. Forced to respond, Slash now admitted in an interview with the New Jersey Home News Tribune that yes, he had visited Axl's home in an effort to call a truce. He said, I actually did go to Axl's house at one point, but I never saw him and I never talked to him. I'd love to know what the person over there having to do with the lawsuit that we were in. I don't know how I got turned into what I got turned into. Now, the fifth thing you may or may not know is that in 2001, following Rock in Rio, she'd given an interview to a Brazilian publication. And now, keep in mind, this was translated from Portuguese into English, so some of the translations may not be 100% correct. So the interviewer said, weren't drugs one of the reasons of Axl's fight with Slash? She said there wasn't any fight. The problem was that Slash said he already had Guns N' Roses records at the time, referring to the first Snake Pit record. She said Slash's last records were terrible and Axl wanted to do something more advanced for the new generations. You can't remain in the same music style you were 15 years ago. She also said, she was also asked, there's an electronic business behind the music. And she said, in the current year, 2001, music is more electronic, but it's not all electronic. Slash wanted to stay in the past, and then there was a problem with drugs. Axl could never count on Slash because he never showed up in rehearsals and he was never okay. So that does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. For those of you who don't know, I did a true story all about Beta and Team Brazil earlier on my channel, so you guys can go check that out. Thanks for watching, guys. Have yourself a good one, and be sure to subscribe and go check out GNRcentral.com for the latest and greatest Guns N' Roses news. Take care.